Most HTML tutorials are doing it backwards. They start with the tags, they show you the p tag, div tag, h1, hand you a list, and tell you what each one does, which feels productive until you close the tutorial and realize you can't actually reason about any of it. You can copy, but you can't think. Here's the thing. HTML wasn't invented in a vacuum. It was invented to solve a very specific problem. And the moment you understand that problem and watch HTML get derived as the answer to that problem, every tag starts to make sense. You stop memorizing, you start understanding, and even predicting. You see a tag you've never seen before, and you can guess what it probably does, and you're usually right. That's what this video does. We're going to invent HTML before we use it. Then we'll write it with a Google document on one side and a code editor on the other. As crazy as it sounds, you'll watch every button you already know, bold, italic headings, turn into the HTML tag that creates it on your web page. Heads up, this is built from the first two sections of my full HTML and web course. The course goes way past HTML itself into understanding the internet, HTTP, DNS, and URLs to build a complete picture of how the web actually works. Link is in the description if you want it. And now, let's go and learn HTML. To invent HTML, we have to start somewhere strange. We're not going to look at HTML yet. We're not even going to look at a computer. We're going to start in the 80s, as a book publisher drowning in papers. Stay with me. The problem they had is the exact same problem HTML was invented to solve. Once you see that, you will never look at a tag the same way again. Imagine you're a book publisher. Every day, writers send you their manuscript so that you can publish them. But there is a problem. Some writers write by hand on paper, others use Microsoft Word, some organize their work in clear chapters, while others send you one massive chunk of text with no structure. As a publisher, you're drowning in chaos. How do you efficiently process all these different formats? How do you find the book title, the author name, or even know where one chapter ends and another begins? This is exactly the problem that existed on the early web, and it's the problem that HTML was designed to solve. Let's continue with our publishing analogy. To make your publishing business scalable, you need to establish a standard. You can't keep dealing with the overhead of different formats and styles and personal preferences that different writers use. So you create a structure, a format for book data that's easy for you to work with and process, easy for writers to adopt, and intuitive for them to learn. You create a manual for them to understand this format as well, and maybe even a software to test their submission and catch errors before sending them to you. Now your business becomes scalable. You expect book data to arrive in a specific format, and writers can do whatever they want during their creative process. But if they want to publish through you, they must translate their work into your expected format. The key insight here is labeled data. Instead of receiving a paragraph like this, where you have to read through everything to find basic information, you want something simpler. A label and a value, like this. Label, value. That's the entire idea. You get exactly what you need, nothing more, nothing less. The data format is predictable. Now, in our publishing system, this label value format ends up looking like this. We'll get into exactly why the designers of this format decided to make it look like this. For now, just notice the shape. The label wraps around the value. Let's take a closer look. We call these with angle brackets tags. They look like this. Let me break this down. The book name is our label, and this is the start tag. That one is the end tag. Notice the extra forward slash. That's how we know it's an end tag and not a start tag. The value, Programming 101, goes between the start tag and the end tag. The generic format looks like this. Very good. Now that we have established a predictable way to represent our data, we define specific tags we expect the writers to use in their book data. We have defined 3 tags, 3 labels, book name, author, and content, and we expect every writer to have these informations filled for the books that they want to publish. Next, we create a manual for our writers with clear examples and explanations for each tag. We don't expect our writers to know these informations by heart. That's why we write documentation. Here's how our documentation looks like. It's called Writer's Manual BTML Guide. And BTML stands for Book Text Markup Language. So it's a language to mark up text of books so that we know which part is which. We have 3 required tags. We have defined each of them, the format we expect, the purpose, and the rules that the writers must follow, along with some concrete examples. So they need to write their book data in this format and follow the rules if they want us to publish their books. Take a look at here. We are telling the writers that we have already created a validation tool, a software, so that they can validate their book data before sending it to us. We don't expect everyone to have the time to read all of our documentation, so we have designed a validation software to help them with validating their books. That's just common sense. This is exactly what happens on the web. Web browsers are like our publishing business, and web developers are like writers. Before HTML, there was no standard way to structure web content. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, became that universal standard. In HTML, instead of book name, we have other tags like title and P, which stands for paragraph. But the idea is the same. This standardization is why any browser can display any website, and why any developer can create contents and web pages that works on all different browsers. The web became scalable because everyone agreed to use the same structure. Just like our publishing business, browsers can efficiently process content because they know exactly what format to expect. By now, we have a working format. Writers submit structured data, and publisher processes it reliably. The chaos is mostly gone. But here's the thing. Once you actually start using a system like this, you run into new problems. Problems you couldn't predict until real data started coming in. The format is live, writers are submitting, and we start noticing something isn't quite right. That problem will introduce us to 2 fundamental ideas that show up everywhere: nesting and versioning. Our structured format has been working great, and writers are successfully submitting their new books using our 3 tags. Here's an example. We had the book name, author, and content, and this writer has published his book, Rise of the King, from John Smith, and this is an example of the content. But after working with this system for a while, I'm getting feedback and noticing some issues that I want to improve. Here are some of the author tags that I'm seeing among different writers' submission. As a publisher, I need to separate first names from last names for my own record. This is my business requirement. But look at this mess. Some have middle names, some don't. Some have titles, some use initials. I'm spending way too much time figuring out which part is the first name and which part is the last name. There has to be a better way to do this. Here's my solution. Instead of one generic author tag, I want to be more explicit. I want to capture different subparts of that information separately. The old way was that I had an author tag, and the writer would put every information related to the author inside that tag. In the new way, I have the same author tag, but I want explicit subparts inside of it. Title, first name, middle name, last name. These are the subparts explicitly defined for the author tag. Notice what's happening here. The author tag now contains 4 other tags inside it. In nesting, we have a parent-child relationship. The author tag is the parent, and the title, first name, middle name, and last name are its children's, are its subparts, if you will. All the child tags are related to their parent. That's why they are inside that parent tag. They belong inside their parent. With this approach, each piece of information is now explicit and labeled. No guesswork. Very good. Let's go and change our BTML format. So from now on, writers must write their author tag in this new format. But wait, I can't just change the format overnight. I have existing customers and users who are already using the old format. If I suddenly change the rules and stop accepting the previous format, I'll frustrate them and potentially lose their business. It's not fair to them and it's not beneficial to me. I need a way to support both the old format and the new format while giving my existing customers time to transition, time to adopt the new format. This is where versioning comes in. So I will create format versions, just like software has version numbers. Each book data will declare which version of my format it's using. This way I know if it's following the new standard or the old standard. So I'll add a special tag at the very beginning of every document. It looks like this. It has an exclamation mark to show that this is a special tag, and what's inside it is that its document type is of version 1. This tells me which version of my format rules this document follows. Now my processing system can look at this first line and know exactly which rules to apply and which tags to look for when reading the rest of the document. Here's how a book document looks like in the new version versus the old version of our format. Beautiful. Now I get exactly the information I need in a structured, predictable way. The authors can either use the new version or the old version to send their information over. But now I need to encourage the writers to adopt the new version. Here's my business strategy. I'll continue to accept the old format without the DOCTYPE for the existing customers, but I'll encourage everyone to migrate to version 1.0. Maybe I give the existing customers a grace period of 3 months, and after that, I will require them to adopt the new version. This way, nobody gets frustrated, but I gradually improve the quality of data I receive. Eventually, I can phase out support for the old format once the grace period has elapsed. What did we learn? First, tags can contain other tags. This is called nesting. It makes logical sense to group related information together. Here's an example. We have street, city, and zip code. All of these informations are childs, are subparts of the address. And here's how we capture them in a structured format. Secondly, we have learned about versioning. Versioning is how a system evolves without punishing the people who are already using it. In the real web, HTML has evolved through many versions, HTML4, HTML5, using the same doctype tag and versioning concept. This is how web maintains backward compatibility, while still improving over time. Very good. Our format is solid, but a new type of customer is showing up. Books written by multiple authors together. And our format has no way to handle that. In the next lesson, that problem introduces us to two more powerful ideas: lists and attributes. Our structured format has been working really great, but I'm getting new requests from customers that are pushing the boundaries of our current system. Here's what's happening. I have new customers who write books together. They want to publish a single book with multiple authors. They're asking me to improve my format to handle multiple authors. Here's an example of my current format. The problem is obvious. My current format only supports one author per book. Here's my proposal. I need to change my format to allow for a list of authors to be inserted. With the current format, I can capture the information for each individual authors using the existing author tag that I already have. But I need another tag to hold these multiple author tags together. So I create an authors tag, notice the plural form, that will contain my list of the individual authors, like this. Perfect. The authors tag is the parent tag. It's like a container, and each individual author tag is a child item inside that container. This creates a clear parent-child relationship where the container, the parent tag, in this case authors, holds multiple similar items, the child tags. In this case, it's author, singular. Now a book can have as many authors as it wants. What if a book has 5 authors? Then put 5 author tags inside. What if it has only one author? Then just put one author tag inside. This introduces us to an important pattern for handling lists in structured data. In this pattern, we have a container tag, usually named using a plural noun like authors, which holds multiple item tags, usually named singular like author. Let me show you another example. What if I want to track the chapters of a book? Then I can have a tag named chapters, and inside that I can have individual chapters as separate tags. The chapters container holds multiple chapter items. Sounds logical, isn't it? Very good. Our format is getting more powerful day by day. But now I'm facing another challenge. I'm receiving books written in different languages: French, Persian, Spanish, and more. I need to know what language each book is written in so I can process them correctly. Here's an example. I could try to read a few lines of the content and guess the language, but remember, the whole point of structured data is to eliminate the guesswork and make everything predictable. But notice this, the language information is special. It's not part of the book's content, but it's information about the content. It's metadata that helps me, the publisher, to understand and process the book correctly. This is where attributes come in. Attributes give us extra information about a tag without adding anything to its actual content. Here's an example. Look at the opening tag carefully. After the label, which here is content, I add a space and then write the attribute. The attribute name is language, and then I say equal to quotation marks, and inside the quotation marks, I put the attribute value, which in this case is English. It is telling me that the language is English for the information that this tag is capturing. Remember, attributes are always written in the opening tag, never in the closing tag. Let me show you a few more examples of how attributes work. I have a content tag with language attribute equal to French, and it is telling me that this tag is capturing some content that are written in French language. Next one is another content tag, this time with language set as Persian, and then we have a book name tag with a language set as Spanish. So no matter the tag, the attribute gives us extra information about that tag. Notice that attributes don't change the content itself. They just provide additional information about it. The Persian text is still Persian text, but now I know it's Persian without having to guess between Persian and Arabic. Well done! Here's an example of our enhanced format with both lists and attributes. Notice that I bumped up the version to 2.0 since we have added new capabilities. What have we learned? Two powerful concepts. First, we learned lists, which use a container item pattern. And second, we learned attributes, which provide metadata about a tag. So far, we have a format that handles multiple authors and accepts some metadata about some tags. But as our format grows, a new problem is starting to emerge: organization. All our tags are sitting side by side with no logical grouping. And that's going to become a problem fast as we add more and more capabilities to our format. In the next lesson, we'll tackle that. We'll introduce structural containers, tags whose only job is to group related information together, and that's going to be the last piece of the puzzle. As our format grows more powerful, I'm facing a new challenge: organization. As my business grows, I want to include more information in BTML document, like contact details, publishing dates, ISBN number, copyright information, and more. If I just keep adding these tags side by side, my format will soon become a chaotic mess. Think about organizing a file cabinet. You don't just throw everything into one drawer. You create sections. Important documents go in one section, correspondence in another, financial records in the third, and so on. I need the same logical organization in my book format. When I'm looking for publisher contact information, I shouldn't have to search through the entire document. That's annoying and inefficient. See how unorganized this is? If I want to look for an information, I should start reading each tag line by line until I find the relevant information. There is no logical grouping. Here's my solution. I will create structural tags that organize related information together. These tags are purely for organization and making the format easier to navigate. Here's what I propose. Notice three important things. First, I created a book container, a book tag, that holds everything. This is a root element that says this entire document represents a book. Second, I have a metadata section for all the information about the book, like title, authors, publisher details, and so on. Third, I have a content section for the actual book text. Chapters, paragraphs, the stuff readers will see. All goes here. Let me show you an example of how this works in practice. I have organized the same information, now with some extra structural tags. Now, if I want to look for the contact information of the publisher, I know that I need to look into the metadata tag because it's information about the book. In here, I have a publisher tag, and in that, I have the contact email. This time, I knew that there's a logical place for this kind of information to be found in my document. Beautiful. Now I have logical sections that make the document easy to navigate and understand. This structural approach gives me several advantages. First is easy navigation. As we have seen, I was able to find the publisher contact information by looking in the metadata section. Second benefit is processing efficiency. My publishing system can quickly extract just the metadata for cataloging or just the content for printing. Third benefit is clear separation and scalability. I can now add new metadata tags without cluttering the content area and vice versa. And this is exactly how HTML works. HTML uses structural elements to organize web page content. The head section contains metadata about the web page, like title and author, just like our metadata section. The body section contains the actual visible content, like heading, paragraphs, images, just like our content section. We played the role of the book publisher. We designed a structured format to capture our book data. We call it BTML, Book Text Markup Language. In that structured format, we were the designers. We decided what tags should exist, what they should mean, what is required, and what is optional. Now in this section, we want to turn the table around. We are going to be the writers of the book. We are going to be web developers who want to publish their content, their website, on the web. The web already has a standard and it's called HTML, Hypertext Markup Language. Our job is to learn this format, use it to capture our web content, and then publish our website on the web. So, before we learn the new format, HTML, let's see how much of it you already know. Let's go and take a look at a real HTML document and dive right in. Here's our first HTML document. It should be under section 2 in your starter files. Through this button, I'm going to run it side by side. This is how the website is going to look like based on the content I've written here. For now, we don't need that. Let's close it. And I've also included an example BTML format. That's the format we have created in the previous lesson. Let me select HTML as the language format so that the tags are colored like this. And then I'm going to put these two files side by side. I want you to notice that how many of the concepts that we have learned in the BTML format directly translates to the HTML. On the first line, we have DOCTYPE HTML that refers to which version of the HTML standard this document is going to use. And this HTML means this document is going to follow HTML5. On the other side, we have the DOCTYPE 2.0. That means this document, this BTML document, is going to follow our second version. Same idea. Then we have an HTML tag, I can collapse it if I want, that captures everything else that is inside my document. This is the root element, the most outer element, and it is suggesting that this document is an HTML document. On the other side, I have my book tag. It was my root element, and it suggested that this document is capturing a book. Here on the book element, I have an attribute. The label is language, its value is English, and it is providing extra information about the book itself, that its language is English. On the HTML side, I have the same thing. Here, instead of language, I have lang, and for the value, I have en for English. Then, inside the HTML tag, I have two main tags, which are the head and the body. Under the book, I have the same structure. I have one section for metadata and another section for the content of the book. So the content is the actual content that the readers will see, and metadata is information about that content. Here we have the same idea. Body holds the actual web contents of your web page that your user sees, and the head section that captures the metadata about your web page. Under the head section, we have some other tags. Let me open the metadata as well. Here we have the book name that describes the name of the book. Here on the other side, we have title that describes the title of the web page. It's the same idea. Take a look here. We have a meta tag with an attribute name that is set to author, and the content is my name. On the other side, we have a different structure. We have authors tag. Inside it, we have author tags. That's a list. And then here I have the same information. Captured, this is my first name and this is my last name. In section 1, since we were the designers of this format, we've decided to represent the author information like this. The HTML designers, on the other hand, decided to have this element and these two attributes to describe who is the author of this web page. It's the same information captured in two different formats. Let's take a look at the body. We see there are more information in this page that are captured using different set of tags that you may or may not have heard of. So not everything in HTML format is going to be familiar to you, and that is okay. When we were designing the BTML format, we have created a documentation for the people who wanted to use our format. We didn't expect everyone to just know what decisions we have made when designing this format. Same is true with HTML. HTML has documentation to document what sorts of decisions the designers has made about representing different piece of information. No one expects you to memorize all the details related to HTML language. You should have a conceptual understanding of what sorts of problem this language is trying to solve, and then use documentation as you need to find out the details. Let's go take a quick look at it. Here on the example 1, if you scroll down, you should see an element like this. We have an OL element, we don't know what that means, and then inside that we have a few other elements which are LIs. If you remember, this is the list pattern that we have talked about. We have a parent element, and inside that we have a series of similar elements. Let's go open the MDN docs and take a look at the documentation for this tag. Here I'm on MDN, go under the HTML tab, and here you have all the documentation related to HTML language. You have some guides and how-tos, and there are some references for elements, attributes, and other things. Under the filter, let's filter them out and look for the OL tag. Here under elements, here's the OL. We see that the OL tag represents an ordered list of items. We have an example here that is showing us live. We can make change and take a look at the output. Under the attributes, these are the valid attributes that you can put on this element to change its behavior. For example, if you add the reversed, then the list is going to be shown in the reversed order. Let's actually use it. I'm just going to copy it and paste it here as an attribute. And you can see that the numbers are now starting from 5 and going up to 1. So these are just some extra attribute that make sense on this OL element. Then we have the usage notes and some more examples about this element. We have an example about nested list. We're going to get to this in the future lessons. That's an example of it. And finally, we have a table about technical summary, which holds some technical information that you probably have no idea about right now. Specification, we're going to get to that shortly, and browser compatibility. These three will make sense once you understand the story behind HTML and how the web works, which is exactly what the full course covers. That was MDN, one very good example of HTML documentation. We're going to talk about that more in the future lessons. Remember, in BTML, we have decided that writers cannot memorize all the rules, so we have designed a validator, a tool that writers can validate their BTML format before submitting it to us. And HTML has the same tool. It's called HTML Validator. You can put your HTML there, it's going to validate it based on the rules, and it's going to tell you whether it's a valid HTML or not. So just search for HTML Validator. The first link should be the one. Here under the HTML validation, let me go to the not detailed page. Under the direct input, I can just copy paste all of the code that I have in my example, paste it here, and click on check. And you see that there is no error in this document, and this is a valid HTML document. But for example, if I remove the head section of this HTML document, so I just have a body section, I remove the head and click on check, I see that I have an error and it's suggesting me that the head element is missing. Then I can go and check the documentation and figure out why this element is necessary. If you click on this link here, it's going to open the documentation, but on a website that we haven't learned about. This website on top is something we go deep on in the full course. Why HTML has two documentation websites and who actually decides what HTML is. So we had a quick tour and exposure to HTML and the tools and documentations around it. And now let's talk about what this section is going to be about. The HTML tags that format the web content fall into two general categories. One is the textual tags, the tags that capture the textual data that you see on the web, and the non-textual tags, the tags that represent non-textual data, like images, videos, audios, and things like that. In this section, we're going to focus on the textual web content and the HTML tags that is going to capture those textual contents. Pay attention that HTML is not inventing textual content, it is providing a format, a structure to capture the textual content. And I'm pretty sure you already have experience working with textual content. Probably you have wrote a letter, a report, a document, or other sorts of things. So tell me, what tools have you used so far for writing and editing textual content on your computer? Probably a word processor like Microsoft Word, Google Docs, LibreOffice, or something else. Let me open Google Docs and I will tell you why we are even mentioning that in this course. Here's Google Doc. It's a free software. You just need a Google account to use it. So if you don't have a Google account, create one and open Google Docs. We're going to use that a lot in this section. And here's why. HTML is not reinventing text. It's giving a structured format to capture that textual information. If HTML is as good as it claims, then it should have relevant tags to capture any textual information that Google Docs can represent. So that's how we're going to learn textual content. We're going to open a Google Doc, put it side by side. We're going to write something, make it look a certain way, and then represent the same information, this time using HTML tags, and learn along the way. That's where we're heading to. We're going to open a Google Doc on one side and VS Code on the other side, and through that, we're going to learn HTML textual content. So let's get started. Here's our setup. I have an index.html file. It's an empty HTML file. And on the right, I've opened a blank document on Google Docs. So to get started, I need the boilerplate code related to HTML. For that, I can use this VS Code feature. I can just type an exclamation mark through this meant abbreviation. I can just select that, and the boilerplate HTML is going to be created for me. The boilerplate HTML are the minimum required tags that any HTML page need to have. So the HTML tag, we have the head and the body tag, the title and some metadata tag that we will learn about later. For now, you don't need to care about it. All you need to know is that you need to type this exclamation mark to get the boilerplate tags. We're going to write everything we're going to learn inside the body tag. All right, let's get started. Here on Google Docs, if I just start typing, for example, hello world, I'm going to get a paragraph. This is just a paragraph of text that is going to be created for me. To create the same on the HTML, I need to use the right tag. And the tag for paragraph is called p tag. So I create a p tag, and inside that, between the start tag and the end tag, I'm going to put the content, which is hello world. Let me put it, and let's preview that. This is how the website is going to look like, just a paragraph. Nothing special so far. If I want to add another paragraph here, I will just press enter, go to the next line, and then I can type something else. On the HTML side of things, if I want another paragraph, I need to create another p tag and put the new content inside. So I will have two p tags, one after the other. Here's how it's going to look like. I have two paragraphs. In Google Docs, I have hierarchy of textual content. So this is just a text, that's why it's labeled as normal text, but I can have headings here as well. If you go to the format menu, under the paragraphs, you can see we have headings from 1 to 6. Let me create one from each and show you how they look like. This is different levels of heading that Google Docs has to offer. It starts from heading level 1 and it goes all the way to heading level 6. Heading 1 is the highest in the textual hierarchy and heading 6 is the lowest. HTML has the exact same concept. It has headings from 1 to 6, and the tag names are H1 through H6. Let me create them all here on the left. Let's take a look at how they look like. Here you can see the same hierarchy. It starts from the biggest most heading, that's the heading level 1, and it goes all the way to the smallest heading, which is heading level 6. The intuition is that HTML did not invent different levels of heading hierarchy. They already existed. HTML just created a format to capture that information using tags this time, instead of going to a menu and clicking on a button. So we have seen the tags that we have for paragraphs and different heading levels. Now we're going to talk about text formatting, and we're going to play a little game together. Let's get going. In Google Docs, if I want to make this piece of text bold, I just need to select it and then press on this button to make the text appear bold. And that's how I make the text bold. Now my question to you is, what do you think I should do to make that text appear bold in HTML? Let me put it here. What tag do you think I should use to make the text appear bold? Let's try to read the mind of the HTML designers. So I have the P tag for paragraphs, and I have H1 tag for heading level 1. Clearly, HTML designers liked short abbreviation, P instead of paragraph, for the tag name. Now my question to you is, what tag corresponds for making the text bold? What name do you think HTML designers have chosen for that tag? Probably you're guessing B, because they liked short phrases, and probably they chose the first letter of the word bold. Let's go check it out. Here I have that HTML text. Currently it looks as normal text. Let me create a B tag and put it around it. Well, you see that using B tag, I was able to make the text appear bold. That's interesting. So short logical tag names looks like the way to go. Let's continue. If I have B tag for bold, then what tag you think I should have for italic? Is itag a thing? Let's go check it out. Here in Google Docs, if I want to make this text to look italic, I need to find the button, which is this one, and by pressing it, the text is now italic. Here, on the HTML side of things, if I want to turn this text to italic, let's take a look to see if the I tag is a thing. And surprise, that's exactly the tag that we need. What if I want this piece of text to look italic and bold? On Google Docs, I will apply both styles to it. On the HTML side, I need to wrap it in two tags, both of them at the same time. Let me do it. Very well, now that text looks bold and italic on my website. Let's see if this pattern of tags continue to appear. Let's learn more tags. If B tag is for bold and I tag is for italic, then what tag is for underline? Well, I believe you're guessing that it should be U, and you'll be right. We're going to see that in a second. Now what about a strike through? What tag should we have for the strike through format? And you're probably guessing S, and you'll be right again. Let's go see it. On Google Docs side of things, if I want to make the text underline, I will choose this button. On the HTML side of things, for the underline, I have the U tag, as we guessed it. Let's take a look. There we go. Now that text is underlined. And for the strike through, well, the button is not here. If you click on the format and go to the text, you see the strike through here. Let's apply it. The text is a strike through. And for the HTML, we guessed that we should probably have a tag called S for the strike through, the first letter of the word strike through. And we're right. Believe it or not, you are reading the HTML designer's mind. You've discovered the pattern of thought that they had when they designed HTML tags. And now based on that, you can guess how tags are named for different purposes. Let's take it up a notch. Here I want to write 4 to the power of 2, so I need to select 2, go on the format, and apply the superscript. And for this one, this is H2O, the chemical formula for water, and that 2 need to be the subscript of the H. Let's go to the format, text, and apply the subscript. Now, what tags do you think I should apply to the 2's here to make one superscript and the other subscript? Let's think about it. So we have U for underline, S for strike through. Now we're asking what tag should correspond to subscript. Clearly, it's not going to be S, because S is already used for the strike through, and it's not going to be the whole word subscript, because clearly the designers of HTML didn't like long words. Probably a designer with these characteristics would have picked just enough letters to differentiate subscript from its counterpart, which is superscript. And for that, you need the first 3 letters, the sub and sup, And that's why probably the tag names are sub for subscript and sub for superscript. Let's go try that. Here for 2, I need to make it superscript. And you see that's exactly the case. The tag name is sub. And for 2 here, I need to make it subscript. And you see that one is exactly true too. So the guy liked short phrases, and the shortest phrase that he could possibly have was to have the first 3 letters to differentiate them from each other. So you are thinking like HTML creators now. You understand the problem that they were trying to solve, creating different tags to capture different contents, and you have seen the pattern in their design. Now you can make educated guess on what kind of tags exist to capture different sorts of content. But pay attention that you're understanding the reason behind their decisions. You're not becoming a fortune teller or a psychic. Here's an example of when predicting doesn't work. Here on Google Docs, if I want to highlight this text, I can use this button and pick a color, for example, yellowish, and then this text is going to be highlighted. What tag do you think corresponds to highlighting text on HTML? So we have S for strike through, sub and sub for superscript and subscript. And now what do we have for highlighted? Maybe you're thinking H or high or something like that. And no, the answer is mark for highlighted, because the designers were thinking of the word marked instead of highlighted. That's why they chose mark for the tag name. Here's the text that I want to mark. If you try to find something with highlight or anything like that, you will find that there is no auto completion. So that means there is no such a tag as this. But for mark, we see that we have that tag. So this auto completion is going to help you to understand whether the tag you're using is the right one or not. So now the text highlighted yellow. This difference of taste in choosing the right word for expressing the same idea is exactly why we have documentation. You cannot possibly predict and understand every design decision that someone makes. That's why you need documentation to understand their reasoning. Let me search for it. Of course, you can use AI, and AI is going to use the documentation, or you can directly go to the documentation and find the mark tag that is going to be used for highlighting texts. So the pattern helps most of the time. When it doesn't, you have the documentation to help you out and bring you back in line. Now let me show you something about white spaces. In Google Docs, I have 2 paragraphs. First paragraph, second paragraph, I have the same in HTML. In Google Docs, I can just press enter in between paragraphs to add extra empty space in between them. But in HTML, if I add the same amount of space here, that space is not going to appear inside my web page. Here's the idea. The HTML ignores the extra white spaces you add in between elements. And it has a good reason for that. HTML documents are all about tags, and tags are the only thing that HTML understands. So, if you add extra white spaces in between tags, you will still have the same number of tags. It doesn't make any difference. If you want to add extra white spaces between your contents, you need to do it in a way that HTML language understands, and that is through tags. For adding line breaks, new lines between your content, we can use the BR tag, which stands for break. And we need to capture that information that we want, line breaks, using the correct tags. BR tag is a special kind of tag. It is a standalone tag. Here's what it means. HTML tags have this structure. We have the label that is inside the opening tag and closing tag, and the value goes in between. For example, for the paragraph, we have the P stands for paragraph in the opening tag and closing tag, that's our label, and the paragraph content goes between them. Now for the BR tag that captures a line break, this structure doesn't really work, because what kind of content are we planning to put inside a BR tag? Well, nothing, because BR tag is not capturing any content. It means we need a line break. Therefore, we really don't need the content area and the closing tag. Only the opening tag will suffice. So if a tag's job is to represent something, like a line break, then we really don't have any content to put inside this tag. The tag itself represents something. Therefore, those tags are standalone tags. They don't have a closing tag or the area to put the content inside them. It's just the opening tag. And you can write them in either way. You can just write the opening tag, or you can write the opening tag with a trailing slash. Both works the same way. Let's go take a look. Here in between my paragraphs, if I want to add extra blank lines, I can create the BR tag. BR stands for break. Now I have a new line captured in my web page as well. I can add more if I want more new lines to be captured. If I want to add extra spaces inside elements, like inside p tag between these two words, if I just add spaces like this, it is not going to work as well. That the space is not going to be captured in my web page. So just one space between each word is going to be captured. If I want to add extra spaces, I need to capture that using tags. It is going to work the same way with the new lines. If I add new lines between words, it's not going to show up here. If I want to add those new lines, I need to do that by using the right tags. Here, for example, I used the BR tag and added the new line between those two words. So all the extra white spaces that we are going to add in our HTML are going to be ignored in our web page. There is a practice called minifying HTML files, and it is all about removing all the empty spaces between your elements. Let me show you. Just search for minify HTML, go to this website, copy paste all your HTML content, and you see the minified version here. All of the spaces have been removed in between elements, but the content is preserved. Let me copy it and paste it over here. I need to save my document without prettier formatting it back to this. That's why you can press Command-Shift-P and then search for save without formatting so that the initial content is preserved, and you can see your web page doesn't look different at all. So all the extra spaces that you add in between your elements are going to be ignored. You are adding them just for your convenience so that you can read an HTML document easier. Let's learn one more tag and practice what we have learned so far through this tag. In Google Docs, I can add a horizontal line by going to the insert and clicking on the horizontal line. A horizontal line is going to be added here. Now my question to you, for capturing a horizontal line on HTML, can I do that by just typing this? Your answer should be no. And the reason, which is more important, is that HTML only understands tags. So if I want to capture a horizontal line, I need to do it through the right tag. So we have sub for superscript, BR for line break, and that is a standalone tag. It doesn't have a closing tag. Now what tag you think we have for horizontal line? We have the HR tag for creating horizontal line. My question to you is, do you think this tag is a standalone tag or not? And the answer is yes. HR represents a horizontal line, and we don't have any content to put inside it. That's why it makes sense for it to be a standalone tag. And it actually is. So here in between my paragraphs, if I want to create a horizontal line, I need to create that using the HR tag. And here's that horizontal line captured for me. And pay attention that HR is a standalone tag. You can write it like this, or you can add a trailing slash if you like. Both works the same way. We have learned quite a few tags in this lesson and realized the pattern that HTML designers have used in choosing the tag names. Before ending this lesson, I would like to show you something and leave you with a question. We have learned to make this text bold, I need to wrap it in B tag, just like this. Let me show you this one. It's a tag called strong. That also made the text look bold. So we have B tag for making the text bold, and we also have a strong tag for making the text bold. Why would the people who design HTML created two tags for the same purpose? And that is exactly what we're going to focus on in the next lesson. In the end of last episode, I showed you something and left you with a question. We have two tags here, one of them with the B tag and another with the strong tag, and both of them achieve the same goal. They both make the style bold. My question to you was, why the HTML designers have designed two different tags for the same purpose? This is what this lesson is about. Before I answer that question, I need to show you something first. Here's a Google document that I have prepared, and it is about FAQ, frequently asked questions, about the product named DOCTYPE. It is a very simple document. DOCTYPE FAQ is the main title. That's why it's heading level 1. Then I have multiple sections. I have getting started section, as it's shown here. I have accounts and billing, security and privacy, and so on. Each of these sections are heading level 2. Inside them, I have questions as heading level 3, and the answers are normal text. So these are just paragraphs. That is the hierarchy and the structure of this document. So this is a simple and organized document. As you can see, Google Doc is applying some styles to different type of text that I have so that I can see the hierarchy of the document more clear. Now, what do you think will happen if I remove all the styles from the document and make all of the text look the same? Make all of the text look like this paragraph. Let me actually do it. Now all the text that I have on this document look exactly the same as normal text. So I don't see any visual difference between headings and paragraphs. Here's my question to you. Does that mean that this document that I have here no longer has structure or organization? Do I no longer have text hierarchy? Take a look at the panel on the left. Even though everything in my document looks exactly the same, I can still see the structure here. See that this is the main title. Then I have different sections. And inside each section, I have those questions clearly defined. So I can move to a specific question using this outline on the left. So even though I have cleared all the styles from my document, the meaning is still there. This text that you see here is still the heading level 1 of my document. And here's the insight. Being heading level 1 on a Google Doc means something. It means this is the main topic of this whole document. So it means something to be the heading level 1 of a document. That heading level 1 also has some styles. For example, it has a bigger font size, bolder text, and so on. But if you remove the style from heading 1, the meaning will not go away. Meaning and style are two separate things. Removing one does not remove the other. In our example, we have removed the style, but the meaning was still there. HTML works exactly the same way. HTML tags are about capturing the meaning of the content and not the style. Let's go see the FAQ document, this time written in HTML. Here's the same FAQ document. It is available under section 2 files, and you can see that the structure is clearly captured here. We have the heading level 1, heading level 2s for each section, and then for questions, heading level 3, and the text is paragraph, as it is shown here. Let me do the same and remove all the styles that is currently applied on our HTML tags. I need to do that using CSS. Don't worry about it. We're going to learn CSS later. So create a style tag inside the head section. And in here, type body space star. That means select everything that is inside the body element. So I'm going to select all the elements that are inside the body. Then curly brackets and select all and set it to unset. So I'm unsetting all the styles that are on every element inside body. And as you can see, every style that was set on those elements is now gone. So using CSS, I have removed all the styles, and now every piece of text looks identical to each other. So the style is removed, but the meaning is still there. And that meaning is captured using the HTML tags. The DOCTYPE FAQ is still the heading level 1 of this web page. So HTML is about capturing the meaning of the content, regardless of its style. And CSS, which we're going to learn later on, is about capturing the style of our content, regardless of its meaning. So it means something for a piece of text to be the heading level 1 of our document. And we're capturing that information using HTML. Let me remove this style reset rule. Maybe you're asking, but we haven't wrote any style for our different HTML elements. Where does this style that is applied here coming from? And here's the answer. These coming from the default style that the browser applies to your HTML tags. Take a look at Google Docs as an example. In Google Docs, when you select a piece of text and make it heading 1, a default style is going to be applied to that text. And that is going to help you to differentiate it from other piece of text that is on the web page. Like for example, from a heading level 2. This is the default style. Let me reset this style to the default. So by default, Google Docs applies a style to different type of text that you have so that you can see the hierarchy of your document easier. Same thing exists with HTML. The browser has default styles that it's going to apply to your different HTML tags. We will learn about that later in CSS. So in conclusion, HTML tags capture different pieces of our content based on its meaning and regardless of its style. Then, for styling any element, we have CSS, and we use that language to style the elements regardless of their meaning. So we have two separate languages for two separate concerns, meaning and style. Now let's get back to the question that we have started this lesson with. Why do we have B tag and a strong tag to make the text bold? The answer is really interesting, that this is not the right question to ask. HTML is not about styles at all. It is about meaning, about the semantics of our content. The HTML tags carry a meaning regardless of what style we apply to them. So let me fix the question and ask the right one. Why do we have B tag and a strong tag, and what meanings do they capture? And here's the answer. The strong tag captures that this piece of content is important. The bold appearance is just the browser's default style for showing the importance. But when you're writing HTML, the meaning is the only thing that matters. This element is called a semantic element. That means this element captures a meaning about its content. Now let's see the B tag. The B tag, on the other hand, does not capture any meaning. We use it for the content that we later on would like to style bold, but that does not mean that piece of content is important. So the default style for the B tag on the browser is bold appearance as well. And this element is called a generic element. This element does not capture any extra meaning. That's why it's generic. Let me make this idea concrete through some examples. Here's our example file. Imagine you're creating a website for a pharmaceutical company. And this is an example of a content that we would like to structure using HTML. Please read this paragraph and tell me which sentences or words are important and we probably want our users to notice and read them. I would say the third sentence. Do not take more than one tablet in a 24-hour period. The reason is, if our user ignores this text, something can go wrong. And to capture the importance of this piece of text, I'm going to wrap it inside a strong tag. Here we go. Now, next question. Which word or sentence is not more important, but we want to make it stand out because it's a brand or company name? RX Clear, our brand name. It is not important for our users to notice this, but because this is our brand name, we want it to stand out. That's why we wrap it in a B tag. So B tag is a generic tag. It's not semantic. It is not capturing any extra meaning, but it represents that we want this content to stand out and appear bold. Very good. Next question is even more important. Let me make it ready. Imagine you're using this tablet for medication. If I remove the strong tag around this instruction, can you still understand and realize that this instruction is important by reading through it? The answer is yes. For you, as someone using this medication, this instruction is important in itself. The importance is within the content. And that is exactly the point. The strong tag does not create importance for the content. It captures the importance that is already there in the content itself. So tags do not add meaning to their content. Tags capture the meaning that is already there in the content itself. So you cannot put a not important text in a strong tag and suddenly make it important. That's not how it works. HTML does not create meaning for your content, it just captures the meaning that already exists in your content. I hope you realize the difference. And finally, last question. If a text is important, should we always style it bold? And the answer is no. Depending on the context, we may like to make the important content to look bold and red, to show warning and danger, or maybe we want it to be italic and yellow, to just be a warning, or maybe we just want it to be a large, all caps letters. So we can decide to style our content however we want later on using CSS, and that's why we have the separation of concerns. We have HTML that has only one concern, to capture the meaning and structure of our content. And we have CSS that has a separate concern, to capture the style of our content. So we have two separate concerns and two different languages to deal with them. When we are writing HTML, we are only concerned with capturing the structure and meaning of our content, and style is irrelevant to us. Later on, when we're writing CSS, we will only care about the style of our content, and the meaning will be irrelevant to us. If you got that, semantic versus generic, meaning versus style, you just got the thing most HTML tutorials rarely touch. That's the line between writing HTML and understanding it. And you're on the right side. But here's the bigger thing. What you really just did, that wasn't learning HTML. You spent the last hour learning to think structurally about information. HTML was the case study. That same way of thinking will hold up everywhere. APIs, databases, config files, anything you'll ever touch as a developer. If you want to keep going, my full HTML and web course picks up where this video ends. We finish HTML, semantic structure, lists, tables, all of it. Then you'll see how the whole ecosystem works together. The browser companies, developers like you, users, and the HTML that's the common standard between them. By the end, nothing about HTML feels random anymore. It stops being a list of tags to memorize and becomes a system you can reason about. We want to stop there. Then we go into the web itself. The internet, the physical network of computers wired across the planet. HTTP, the shared language those computers use to talk to each other. You will write HTTP messages by hand and send them out to real servers around the world so that the web stops feeling like magic. We'll learn about DNS. We will buy a domain and point it to any computer we would like. And we see how our configuration spreads across the globe. We'll learn about URLs, paths, forms, and many more to build the full picture of what web actually is and where you fit in. If something in this video clicked for you, drop it in the comments. I read every one of it, and engagement is what helps a small channel like mine to grow. And tell me what you want me to cover next. I have my own roadmap, but if a topic keeps coming up, I'll drop my plans and make that one first. And finally, subscribe if you want more videos like this. Stop memorizing, start understanding. That's how you stop following AI and start directing it. See you in the next one.